Wake up, Adam, they are getting close.
I'm gonna go to him when I die. Jesus is coming and he's fitting to ride. I'm gonna go to him when I die.
Ukrainians claim to have destroyed large Russian warship in Berdyansk. There's been a whole lot said over the last few days, a ton of information, disinformation, misinformation, and of course, BBC saying that they're going to verify all of it. But of course, we don't know exactly what is true here. It says that the UKR armed forces said that they destroyed a large Russian landing ship at the port of Berdyansk in southern UKR on Thursday. The port, which had recently been occupied by Russian forces with several Russian warships in dock, was rocked by a series of heavy explosions soon after dawn. Social media videos showed fires ranging at the dockside, and it's, of course, a series of secondary explosions reverberating across the city. It says that the armed forces of UKR said that they had destroyed a large landing ship, which they named the Orsk, in a post on Facebook. Several Russian ships had been unloading military equipment at Berdyansk in recent days, according to reports from the port of Russian media outlets. The UKR armed forces said that besides destroying the Orsk, it said 2 more ships were damaged. It said a 3,000-ton fuel tank was also destroyed. Fire spread to the enemy's ammunition depot. Details of the damage inflicted on the occupier are being clarified. It says it's not known what weapon was used to attack the port. Analysis of videos uploaded on Thursday showed that one Russian naval vessel left in port soon after the explosion. So most likely over the next couple days, we're going to find out that if that Russia's probably going to say if this was true, or they're going to deny it. If they say it was true, they're going to say that the U.S. did it or NATO infrastructure did it, and it's going to cause a whole bunch of other back and forth as far as rhetoric goes, which we already have a lot of rhetoric already. We have Medvedev basically threatening to use nukes again. We have all tons of things going on. But most importantly, the real thing that I believe is important is China, and that's what we need to pay attention to. So later on, we'll talk about that. And, of course, the simulation that they just ran, destroying our aircraft carriers. In fact, they're practicing taking out our ships. So we'll talk about that and much, much more on today's Marfoogle News. Today is a call-in, so after we introduce Dex, the lines will open. So I will ask you to wait to call in at 224-400-MARF until after we introduce Dex. After that, it's free game, and make sure to grab a couple phones and start ringing in. We'll see you in just a second. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough.
I'm gonna go to him when I
All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we're going to go over a ton of stuff in a short amount of time, so if you're new here, make sure to go over to our website, Marfoogle News, and find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document we're going to talk about here today. Now, when you go there, you'll see everything is very easily navigatable by thumbnail. So just click on today's thumbnail, China on the horizon, and of course, China practiced what? Once you click on that, you'll find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document here. And then, of course, don't forget there's the overflow. We'll talk about that at the very end. So stick around. We're going to talk about some of the more interesting things that are down there as well. That's all the stuff that could not fit into the show. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Now, before we go over to the phones, we're going to open them in just 2 seconds. I did want to get on this first story, not the large warship. Well, we can talk about that here for a second. But the U.S. economy beats back dubious recession fears after the GDP jobs data top expectations. I personally think there's a lot of BS going around and a lot of kind of throwing up rainbows and ponies to try to fool us and think that everything is okay and not to panic. Meanwhile, places like Germany have officially hit recession. If somewhere like Germany hits a recession, other places have inflation of 120% and 50%. Obviously, this is all going to start dominoing into other countries and into other places, and it's getting really bad. People like Jack Dorsey have said that hyperinflation is coming soon, and he is, of course, referencing the U.S. of A. So this is something that we have been watching, and in slow-mo, watching a car crash, kind of like a car crash dummy. Dex, what do you think about the well, first of all, if you want to go over the U.S., the dubious recession fears, and then your opinion on the Russian warships, and then we'll open up the phones here.
Yeah, so on the economic front, this is definitely at least some sort of spin to make us feel like things are not as bad as they are, doom and gloom as they seem to be. I'm not sure if I really have an opinion on this other than, it's a lot of this is coming off of commentary from BlackRock, of all people, the CIO there. But, they're basically saying, hey, a couple of indicators are out now, such as the labor market, and quote unquote, it had to be revised due to some, they're calling it fraudulent data from Massachusetts, that's showing the claims weren't piling up as they previously anticipated. But showing that, as well as other, economic data around the GDP, that was making it look like, hey, it's not as bad as everybody says it's going to be, even though inflation is up. Like, don't worry about inflation, but these other two things look good. I'm still skeptical on this. I don't think that this is, it's just my personal opinion. I'm skeptical. I don't believe that this necessarily means all is well, but at the same time, these are a couple of valid points and we should look at them. As far as the ship, though, we've actually got another ship we're going to be talking about later in the show. So sit tight, folks. It seems like there's a lot of these, and there's a lot of questions around the validity of the claims. There's images that go along with them. There's claims that go along with them. But there's a lot of questions about how it was done, who was involved, and what really happened. So we'll get through some of that later in the show with another one that has a lot more sketchiness around the drones they allegedly used. In this one, this is rather new. So there's not a lot of details. We don't know what it was. We don't know, other than what they claim, which ship it was. We don't know what they used to do it. We do know that that another ship had left right after this attack happened. So presumably it would make sense if there was an event there and somebody was capable of leaving, they would want to get out so that they weren't damaged. So a lot of that sort of lines up, but there's still a lot of murkiness in this information that's coming out around this. Now, all of this is sort of at the stage of this offensive that we're supposed to be seeing. So is this part of it? We don't know.
Well, they were definitely aiming very specifically at a ship in the water. I say that way because I no longer say target. Rob Mills says no to target. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I just watched a whole thing, and we'll talk about that later. That is something that is a big topic of conversation. Personally, like I have said, I think that the Target stuff, partly the Bud Light stuff, the Bud Light thing, I believe was more organic than the Target thing. But a lot of this, it's like I think they do really things that go against our absolute moral grain so they can get us really pissed off, trigger and they'll even just do something for one day. They don't care about losing money because they get it all in other places, and then they divide us. There is something causing a massive divide in our country, and it's not just the Target thing or the Bud Light thing. It's not even the things that are going on in pretty much every facet of our country or even our world. It is something that is so far wide, reaching than that. And I think that there's a lot of influence in this to make us essentially pissed off all the time, completely distracted. Now everybody says everything is a distraction because we do feel distracted. When we feel something, usually our gut is right. And the reason why I believe people are saying everything is a distraction is because at any given time, we are being distracted by something. Kind of like if you watch a magician, you feel like they're about to do a trick with their hand. You see that you're like, I know he's going to do something with that left hand. I'm watching it. Just like watching a street magician, you see it and you go, I know he's going to pull something out of that sleeve. That's how we feel 24/7 now because we are being lied to 24/7. Even if you are with somebody face to face or a coworker, you know when people are lying. You know when deep down there's something that gets triggered. We're very people have good intuition. Some people don't, but most people have a basic level. It is fight or flight. It's something that just kind of comes with the program of being a human being. Like we see it. Right now is just a tiny thing compared to what is happening to our entire world in just a few short years. Remember, whatever happens with Target or Bud Light, this is, it could be a tiny part of the DIE stuff and all of that. But really, the big deal that everybody should be paying attention to is that other countries are now influencing ours more than ours is, and that in just a few short years, we're going to be completely changing how we run our world. We're no longer going to be on petrol, according to the people in charge. That means the petrodollar, the U.S. dollar, which many of you U.S. citizens are used to being the top of the world, is no longer. And if you know about all of the previous times that they have actually gathered up all of the richest, most elite people in a room and said, you know what, this is going to be the order of things going forward. And they have actually decided, like, this country is going to be the top dog. And now it looks like they have had several meetings and maybe somebody else got picked as that top dog. Now, all of those top people will still be top dogs and they'll still have a seat at the table, but they don't give a crap about the rest of their countries or anything else as long as they and their family and their personal friends are taken care of. So just pay attention, like this whole conflict with Russia, this is all a long game thing. As documents say, and as some of the opinions of some of these people later on in the show, as far as the Medvedev says that this is going to go on for decades. I could believe that. I mean, look at what happened with our recent conflict that went 20 years after 2001. Anyways, make sure to call in 2244-00-MARF. Give us a call at 2244-00-6273. The number is right down below. Make sure to call us now. Remember, get in early, and then once we have all of the callers filled up, there still is a chance to get in, but usually we will line up all of the calls in the first, half an hour, and then they usually wait on hold. But we have a lot of callers that end up dropping, or at least one per show usually. So just keep trying. If it rings and rings and rings, make sure to just keep calling back. All right, and then Viv B says, worst case, Mad Max, and best case, Great Depression 2.0. Well, as far as, the recessions that they're talking about and everything else, this is some believe we're already in the very beginning of a really horrid spin. And then Elon Musk's mind control chip is cleared for human testing despite monkey deaths. How this is happening, I don't know. Elon Musk, essentially, he is creating these chips that obviously he's saying that he's competing with AI, and he says that he needs humans to be able to compete with AI. And this is his solution. At least publicly, he says that these mind Neuralink kind of connections and humans connecting to the internet and connecting to the broad, range of information out there is to make sure that we evolve alongside AI, and this will basically combat that we'll be able to basically evolve with this. And it says human trials will start soon on a brain implant, which aims to help treat people with autism, obesity, and a range of other conditions, despite earlier rejections over animal deaths. So it's crazy that they're putting obesity into this. So if you are overweight, you get this. I wonder what other, and the only reason obesity is pretty serious, especially here in the United States, but autism, first of all, I think autism's actually is a gift, not a downside. But with obesity, you have someone who's overweight. Well, what if they want to quit smoking? Or what if they want to quit drinking? Or what if they want to do any kind of thing or quit anything? Or if they're addicted to something, if they're addicted to drugs, this is probably going to be used to sell a broad range of kind of quick fixes for humans if they can do stuff like this. Specifically, any kind of thing that humans do that they're not supposed to do, they'll probably be able to say and make a case for the Neuralink being able to solve that. Human trials are set to start soon for Elon Musk's brain chip implants after his company gained FDA approval on Thursday. Neuralink, the brain chip company founded by Musk, has announced that it has received approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, which is absolutely crazy that they're the ones who decide if this is okay to go. The FDA to proceed with its first human tests. It says the project aims to restore vision and mobility, establishing a direct connection between the human brain and computers. The Neuralink device is about the size of a large coin and is designed to be implanted in the skull with ultra-thin wires going directly into the brain. It says the company hopes to utilize these implants to treat conditions such as paralysis and blindness, as well as assist people with disabilities in operating computers and mobile technology. I'm trying to remember the name of the movie that came out, and it had a thing called SIM, I think it was, and it was a chip that this gentleman in the future, essentially him and his wife are driving down the street. His car crashes after he brings like an old school car to this tech mogul, which they made the tech mogul a lot like an Elon or a Bill Gates or like a Zuckerberg. And they're going down the street, they crash, and then these muggers in the ghetto area basically mob them, and they take like a cattle prod and they make this guy paralyzed. Well, in this movie, they end up having him implanted with this chip, and the chip essentially ends up being a full-on AI, and the guy doesn't realize it at first, says yes to it, saying, this will be able to move your body around, but then he ends up having a voice of a chip, and it's the AI, and this AI ends up taking over his body. What is absolutely nuts about this thing is like now something like that fictional movie is actually possible. Let's see here. I wonder does anybody know the name of that movie? Dale Jackson, what is that movie? Do you remember the name of it? And I was trying to think of what the heck that was. Either way, I'll make sure to put it in. It was actually a pretty entertaining movie, but it's not entertaining knowing that this is actually a possibility and a probability now that you will be able to add something like a Siri or an Alexa into your brain. I mean, this is pretty terrifying. Some people don't believe that our country or even civilization will last long enough to see this because something else is coming beforehand. While Neuralink has not yet revealed its immediate plans for participant recruitment, the approval marks a significant milestone. Previous attempts to gain FDA approval were reportedly rejected due to safety concerns based on statements from current and former employees. So even the people, what was that? Gosh, I gotta find out the name for that dang movie. It was pretty good. Amadeus. I don't know if that's the plot to Ghost in the Shell. I haven't seen that in like 25 years or something. Upgrade. That is right. I can't even say your name, but upgrade, that is completely right. Deck. And then Microsoft president reveals his biggest AI fear in stark warning over dangerous tech that's already in use. Remember, you can give us a call at 224-400-MARF if you are also somebody who has a really, really awesome range of information in your head. If you're a specialist, if you're military, if you have something that you want to, of course, educate people on, give us a call, 224-400-6273. The number is down below. Make sure to thank your mods by going over to marfugglenews.com/friends. They are keeping it a peaceful place down in the chat. Just remember, when we do get the calls, not to insult the callers. There's no saying next in any kind of circumstance. You will be muted for 5 minutes. It's not going to be anything personal. We understand that there's people that are new all the time, and people say that. If you're listening to call in, you just yell it out. We don't do that here. We make sure that all of the callers at least get their 5 minutes, and they're able to say what they want to say. And of course, if people are saying next and all of that, that's just rude. Those people, the people that are calling, are going to then end up being back in chat. Later on, they may end up reading those chats, and it's just not nice. Understand that there have been people with speech impediments, or even one person that specifically had a stroke. Everybody dropped in chat. They said, oh, this person's drunk. What a drunk. What an idiot. What an alcoholic. They said all that. That person who had a stroke and permanently cannot speak well ended up watching back their own call and seeing all of the horrid things said in chat. And it was absolutely nasty. And they called back in and they ended up telling the audience. And I guarantee you there were some people in the audience that felt absolutely horrid and will probably never put that in chat ever again, no matter how the caller sounds. So just remember that. We don't put anybody else down. Those are the few rules we have. Don't put anybody else down. And again, respect each other. Let's see here. But yeah, the president has revealed the biggest artificial intelligence concern, and it's quite creepy. Brad Smith gave a speech in Washington on May 25th, which discussed how AI could be regulated. Smith's biggest concern is deepfakes made by AI that end up spreading misinformation. Now, this narrative is going to go way further than this. It started years ago, and we, of course, saw this coming from a million miles away. He said, we're going to have to address the issues around deepfakes. It says we're going to have to address in particular, what we worry about most is foreign cyber influence operations, the kinds of activities that are already taking place by the Russian government, the Chinese, and the Iranians. It says, and added, we need to take steps to protect against what alteration of legitimate content with an intent to deceive or defraud people through the use of AI. Now, alongside this, understand that people are going to be under huge blanket bans and things like this. Imagine this in the near future. Regular people are going to be accused of being AI or deepfakes. You will be able to be knocked off a platform because you have some sort of iteration of content, and they'll say, oh, this is fake, or they believe, or they say this is fake content. What if a journalist on their YouTube channel ends up showing a legitimate video, but then they say that's a deepfake? All of a sudden, not only does that get taken off that channel, but it also gets that creator taken down or suspended, and it would be a way to keep them quiet, essentially. It says deepfake videos are made using a blend of artificial intelligence and computer imagery to create a manipulated version of a real person. The technology can create convincing but fictional photos or videos from scratch. Voice clones are usually dubbed into the video to make it more authentic too, which now voice clones, I don't know what they call the actual thing there, but separately, if they can line up, now they have these AI that can actually copy any voice from just 3 seconds of it. And personally, I and a few of the people I know have tried it, and it is absolutely incredible. I mean, it's nuts. They can make it sound like a dead grandpa, 100 years ago, just from a recording of a clip. It is pretty nuts what they can do, and when you team that up with deepfakes, you then have something that is extremely dangerous. You guys knew about this years ago. We've been talking about it for a long time. We told you when it was just like a rumor, as far as basically 5 years ago, the computers that consumers and regular people were not up to par to do all of this kind of stuff, especially the deepfake end of it. Now you can get this done with a pretty nice computer. It says deepfakes can be used to trick people into believing false information has come from a legitimate source and is a big security concern. According to Reuters, Smith has called for the licensing of critical AI forms that regard security and cybersecurity. He said we would need new controls to ensure that these models are not stolen or used in ways that would violate the country's export control requirements. I think they're personally more concerned about losing money and losing their stuff to this. It's as far as creepy goes, it says my worst fears are that the technology caused significant harm to the world, Altman added. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong. He admitted that AI spearing misinformation, especially during election periods, is one of the greatest concerns. So you already see the setup, and we're going into this period right here. So just to zoom in on this, now that AI is a thing, even if it's not, even if the videos that end up getting released are only capable by the most high-powered government supercomputers that get released in just the next few months, even if these videos are so good that it only had to be done by like a nation state actor, they will of course say, this is a problem, and then the solution comes. Now mind you, I bet you there's going to be legitimate video comes out, and now pretty much anybody, somebody like a hunter or somebody else that has video come out that's not very that's pretty embarrassing, they can essentially say that it is a deep fake or that it is absolutely manufactured. That's the freaky part too, is saying that real videos are fake and fake videos are real. So I would expect, and this is just my prediction, is that we are going to see some very important deep fakes come out in the next few months, in the next 6 months or so, during this whole period of time where everybody picks who they want to be puppeted. What do you guys think? Let me know. Give me a call at 2244-00-MARF. Again, that's 2244-00-MARF. And remember, you can call in right now. The lines are open, 2244-00-6273. All right, and then thank you, Amanda B. Thank you, Linda P. for PayPal. Thank you, Brenda L. for the $5 PayPal. I appreciate that. And then Claire L., Max Bites, Chris G., Jacqueline L., Kevin C., Franco LLC, and, of course, Tracy Q. and Linda S. Thank you so much as well. I appreciate your support, and thank you for supporting Independent. America's nuclear secrets are vulnerable to fraudsters and spies, Watchdog report says. It says a new Watchdog report says that the federal agency that keeps the nation's nuclear secrets has failed to establish an insider threat program to guard against fraudsters, leakers, and spies in the midst, a decade after the presidential order to do so. It says the bluntly worded report by the Government Accountability Office, which is the GAO, which you barely hear about, says the Energy Department has for years failed to act on recommendations from our independent reviewers, pointing to gaping holes in its efforts to create an insider threat program, or an ITP. It says, and it notes that in 2017, the most recent year that data was available, there were about 250 unclassified insider threat-related security incidents, including sending classified information over unclassified systems. I think 249 of those may have been Hillary, but leaving security areas unattended and not properly protecting classified information. It says there were also several malicious incidents, the report notes, including a nuclear safety program and a manager sentenced to 18 months in prison for accepting almost $500,000 in bribes in exchange for official acts. And people will have to realize that this is happening all the time. It says the theft of nuclear material and the compromise of information could have devastating consequences. The GAO said The threats can come from external adversaries or from insiders, including employees or visitors with trusted access. Such threats could have significant consequences for national security and could include unauthorized release of classified information, workplace violence, or improper access to sensitive nuclear weapons material. And mind you, in the future, there could be a story that says that an American, somebody who works there, somebody even high up, maybe the corporate, the culprit of something like this, and they'll probably be able to relate them to either faction left or right side of the aisle, I'm sure. It says the GAO report comes after NBC News reported exclusively last year that at least 154 Chinese scientists who worked on the government-sponsored research at the Energy Department's Los Alamos National Laboratory over the last 2 decades have been recruited to do scientific work in China. Essentially, they are stealing all of the folks that have worked on our top secret stuff. Even in our navies, they're trying to grab our pilots and give them absurd amounts of money to switch over to China. These are Americans, or even folks that have worked at American companies, and they basically grab them, snatch them, and bring them back to their country to extract every piece of information they can. Some of which have helped advance military technology that threatens America's national security. It says a report by Strider Technologies described what it calls as a systematic effort by the Chinese government to place Chinese scientists at Los Alamos. Well, who's letting them in then? It says where nuclear weapons were first developed. It says many of the scientists were later lured back to China, and I don't think they were lured. I think they were there in the first place, to help make advances in such technologies as deep earth penetrating warheads, which is kind of ironic since China just said that they have one that can go so deep that it's unbelievable. It can basically penetrate anything. Hypersonic missiles, quiet submarines, and drones. According to the report, it said that scientists were paid as much as $1 million through participations in Beijing's talent programs. Basically, the grand prize at something like America's Got Talent, only the only talent you need is I guess, to be a traitor. Designed to recruit Chinese scientists to return to the Asian countries. A former Los Alamos scientist pleaded guilty in 2020 to lying about his involvement in a Chinese recruitment program, but most of the contact described in the report appears to have been legal. The kind of technology transfer described in the Strider report is among the risks that insider threat programs are designed to mitigate. So this is, and somebody pointed out in chat, and I forgot who that was, but they said that there was a stat, and I don't know if this is true. We'll have to verify this. Someone in chat said that there were something like 7,000 folks from that country that just crossed over in a short amount of time. I will have to verify that, but I am not surprised by that. There were Iranians, there was Chinese, there was even I heard that there was a huge chunk of people from Cuba in that group that came over just a few weeks ago or a week ago. So I wonder if that is an accurate statement. 7,000. And let's see here. What's going on, K. Parker Fraser? Hey. Hey, Nickel Wise. Nice to see you again. Miss Jammer, nice to see you. Blur. Let's see. Irene, I'm coming to you. Bobby Soup Fry. Scooby-Doo right? What's happening? Nice to see you. And let's see here. Whoops. Let's see here. Okay. And then Starshine. Hey, nice to see you on YouTube. Linda Sullivan says aliens are real. Architect, Android Architect says, yep, it was just put on Voodoo and it was really good. Android Architect, please send me the link to whatever you're talking about. I would love to hear that. Make sure to give us a call at 224-400-MARF. Again, if you want to call in. We actually have Aldona, a first-time call, and his perspective, her perspective as a creator on TikTok with over 1 million followers. So we're going to get Aldona on the line right now. While we do, make sure, if you guys haven't already, If you haven't seen any of the Energy products, make sure to go over and check them out. Any of the Energy solar generators here these are the top of the line solar generators. These are the best on the market in my opinion, and these are literally probably the top of everybody's list. Should be power at this point. Without power, you can't do much. But of course, it is a big chunk of a budget if you are trying to do anything prep related. So I would save up for these if you don't have the ability to do so now. But Energy makes some of the best solar generators out there. Not only that, they have their flagship system, which is incredibly unique, which is the Energy Flex 1500. It's expandable. It works like Lego. There's no external cords on less than 5 batteries. You can go up to 96. But if you go less than 5, you can actually do it in a single stack. There's no external wires coming out. It is stealth. It is silent. And of course, you don't have $5 a gallon gas. You get your power from the sun, and it stores up, and of course, it stays there. So it's an incredible system to have, and it will save people's lives, especially anybody with CPAP or oxygen machines after your backup battery goes. Something like this would be absolutely necessary. So if you haven't seen these, make sure to go check them out. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. And make sure to use the code Marfoogle. You'll get a special savings. They just did the Flex Tactical, which is still on pre-order. It hasn't come out yet. But if you do want to get the best of the best of the best, this was helped. They actually had the Air Force Research Laboratory. They partnered up and helped design the Energy Flex Tactical. So this even has a built-in heater for the extreme cold. And of course, it is water and dust resistant. It is everything you want. So make sure to go over there and check it out. marfooglenews.com/energy. It helps support our channel, and you get a huge discount as well. All right, Aldona, you are live on Marfoogle News. What is going on?
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm doing good. So am I reading this correctly? Are you a creator on TikTok?
I am a creator on TikTok. I have over 1.2 million followers, and I am purposely not giving my username like as what I'm telling you my name is. I'm giving you my legal name because I don't go by my legal name, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm calling you to get more followers, because that was the last thing. That was the last motivation. I just wanted to talk to you about the whole thing, because I kind of noticed that every time it gets brought up, or you kind of throw it in, and you say it kind of in a condescending way, like as if that's like the worst way we could all be distracted is on TikTok, you know? And so I thought, I'm going to call up these guys. I'm going to tell them my experience, because this has literally been one of the most amazing experiences of my whole entire life. I got to tell you. And I'll start by mentioning that I am 70 years old. And when I got on this thing, I was 67. And I thought, this is like, I don't know if I can handle this. It's like, you know, I'm going to want followers. I'm going to pay attention to how many people are liking it, just the whole thing. And I thought, no, I can't do that to myself. And I really enjoyed watching myself. I'm not going to get sucked in and start doing things. But something came to me really strongly one morning, is that if I'm going to do this thing, then I have to figure out a way to be the giver. Like, I got to be the one giving. And what came to me is I finally did my first little music thing, because I'm a singer. I play guitar, and I sang along with this one girl that has a beautiful voice, and I did this little duet that lasted 30 seconds. And when she answered me and she responded and said, "Lovely," I got all excited. It was like, oh my gosh, she listened and she liked it. And then like 70 people commented, and I was like freaking out. Like, who are these kids? They're all like kids, you know, why are they looking at this? And I thought, wow, can I be on this end? Can I be on the end that's making somebody happy because I paid attention to them, you know? And with that, the first thing I started doing was making songs that I would sing the harmony, because I thought it's not that easy to harmonize, so I'll do the harmony and they can do the melody. I guess that's a common thing. I didn't know. I thought I made that up. But, and then all of a sudden everybody was singing along, and I made sure I watched and I said how great it was, and they're like crying, you know, it's just crazy. And so this has been going on for like 3 years now, and it's so rewarding. There's such a connection. There's such a feeling of community. And I know that like the content on TikTok is as varied as the content on the internet. I mean, you're going to find some horrible things on there. Just like, remember how when the internet came out, it was like a big deal. All of a sudden, what? There's porn on the internet? It was like, oh, don't go on the internet. You know what I mean? But then it's like little by little, you just know where to go or not to go. And that's
Okay.
kind of how it is with that. Like,
well, no,
my
I'm
feed-
not. I don't say. Okay, so there's some great stuff on TikTok, and there's great people on TikTok, and I believe that the part of TikTok that you're on and the part of content that you are creating is amazing. That's awesome, especially anything to do with music and just the positive messages and everything else. But there
Yeah.
is, but just to let you know that, of course, you probably do get algorithmically pushed up. That's family friendly. It's something that everybody can jive with. But what
do.
also gets pushed up,
I never see the other stuff.
but Aldona, but that's algorithmic because you're into music, so it'll show you music. But the thing is you're not a kid as well. Like you said, it's all these kids. These young kids are going on there to see live panels of essentially these politically driven panels that it's eight versus one, all in favor of basically they're all on the same side. They're all in their own echo chamber, pushing extremely serious subjects like, transitioning at the age 11 and things like this and all sorts of different immovable things that you're in your 70s. So you know that there's a difference between us and the young crowd here, but there's some differences that people will not overcome from our generations because it is just an immovable thing. And as far as they're actually going in and they're recording your keystrokes, they're recording everything about everything. And this isn't just some company. This is China's CCP that is doing this. So you have to understand, I totally support you and your ability to create and get to people. And I don't hate on anybody for having to be able to reach new people because you're reaching people on a platform. And obviously you're reaching a lot more than we are. So that's a great thing. And I've never hated on anybody if they go on a platform that's hated. I'm not going to hate on TikTok. I have one. I probably have 3 followers or something. I just never put an effort into it. But as far as like I don't hate on, and my some of my mods, one of my mods is extremely successful on TikTok. The reason they're not here is because they're blowing up over there. But they do know as well as I do that this is straight up going towards the CCP. Now the whole banning thing, I think that's a bad thing too because they're basically going to use that against anybody in the internet. So they're going to go say they're banning TikTok because, of these reasons, but really they can't control TikTok. So they can't control what they do.
Right. They can't control it. That's the thing. I'm thinking if we take over, they're going to control it. We're not going to see everything that maybe we could see now,
Well,
if some U.S. entities start taking over, it's going to be totally different.
Well, and it's the fact that TikTok, they push values on TikTok and it's created in China. They push values on that platform for everybody else to gobble up, but they won't allow those same values in their own country. So they'll push things on there that essentially cause dismay and turmoil and strafe in countries, but then at the same time, they don't even allow it there. And it just makes you wonder. It makes
Are you talking about TikTok? Are you talking about China, TikTok? I heard that they do have it, but they have a completely different content. Theirs is all uplifting. They don't allow a lot of freedoms, but I heard that they do have it there. I might be wrong.
If they do have TikTok, they don't allow virtually anything. Under the China law, you cannot share anything, and you can't dissent. You can't do anything else. And just so you know, even on TikTok, I have personal friends that have done videos about how TikTok is anything. If you talk badly about them, your account is gone. If you talk badly about that country, your account is gone, even if it's factual. So
that makes sense.
But no,
when I first got on there, one of my first successful things that took off was a Russian song. No, it was a 21 Pilots song, and suddenly all the comments were in Russia. It took me all night to turn them into English and say something back. It was like the last time I tried to answer all the comments. And after that, they said, saying something in Russian. So I learned something, and all of a sudden when I look at the algorithm, my followers are mostly in Russia. And I'm thinking, my parents, they're Lithuanian, and they ran away from that whole thing during World War II. I'm like, they would be rolling over in their grave if they knew I had all these Russian people like liking me. But then, it's the people. The people are good everywhere. It's the darn leaders, Isn't that a shame how it is?
No, it is. And so have you thought, now, are you trying to transition into shorts as too, just as a backup if something happens to TikTok? Are you trying to upload your content other places?
I do. Every time I do something, I put it on Instagram Shorts and I put it on YouTube Shorts. So I kind of got it out there, because when we were almost lost it a couple of years ago, I was really getting ready to like, what do I do now? This is going to end. So right now I do, it won't be the same, because I never really had that much success on any other platform. There's something about TikTok. It's almost like, even though there's a million followers, it's like dog years. It's really not. It's probably only like 10,000 on YouTube. You know what I mean? I don't know why that is.
Let me ask you this. So I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, with TikTok, if you're at 1 million followers, say whatever it may be, so now can people on TikTok make a living on TikTok, or how does that work?
Well, I was hoping you'd ask, because the money thing is like a real thing, and I guess when people are like super gigantic, it's ridiculous how much they make. When they first came out, I remember we all heard about, what's his name, Charlie D'Amelio was making $43,000 per video by just doing nothing. And it was like, what? So of course, everybody's, thinking, can I do this? And it's almost like maybe that's what China is hoping, that we're all going to get distracted by wanting to become famous and rich. This is what we want. Americans want to be rich and famous. Let's give them a little app that makes it possible for anyone. So anyway, so for the longest time, after maybe 100,000 followers, I started getting paid very little, like maybe $10 a month, 3 cents a day, 10 cents a day, 20 cents a day. Oh, $5 in one day. Look at that. And then I did something that took off like crazy, and it was a $50 or $60 day. And I thought, whoa, if I did this every day, this would be good, And then it kind of went back down to 10 cents a day. And they just changed everything. And they have this whole new program. It's called, I can't remember. I should have written it down. Creativity. Let's see. Did I write it down? No, I did not. Anyway, and now instead of per day, they are keeping track of what that video is making.
See,
so you have an idea of like what's taking off.
Well, the whole thing is the reason why it's such a different platform is because of these reasons. And a lot of the other platforms are taking the good stuff that they want out of it, and they're leaving the bad stuff. I could see Charlie Amelia mention, I see this, and the one thing, like you said, everybody thinks that they can be somebody, and some people can, but what has it done to our society for every single person to have this attitude of like, I could be famous? It has put everybody in that spot where they're auditioning.
But there's a lot of people you'll see that don't create at all. Like I would say, there must be a very low percentage that's actually doing the creating. It's not like everybody on TikTok is a creator. You'll go to people like over and over to look at their account and they have nothing. They're just on it to enjoy it. Not everybody's cut out to be a performer, And the thing is, on TikTok, it's like, that was the first thing I noticed, how much amazing talent, untapped talent in the world. I never realized. And here was some place where someone could like really show everybody, and it just rises to the top. The cream rises. Not that I'm trying to brag that I'm the cream, but you can't show your lunch.
But what would you
at in a city?
What would you say to somebody that said that you have been grabbed by the sirens, that the siren seduced you with the song, and that TikTok has grabbed you up, snatched you up?
Then I would say that I work every day to stay on the shore and not be on that boat that's going toward the siren, because I can't, because it's never enough. If I look at it like that and think, I want to do it, because right now, like the songs I do, I don't even think like which ones will go viral. I've had like people suggest, do this one. Oh, it'll go viral. I'm like, no, I don't like that song. It's like that song does nothing for me. I have to like really feel I gotta cry listening to a song before I want to cover it. Because I started covering songs. I'm technically a songwriter. I mean, I wrote my own songs, but suddenly I'm not that interested in coming out with my own music anymore because there's so many good songs out there that everybody loves, and they're finding all this joy of me, this little lady with this real calming voice that reminds me of their grandmother singing their favorite song from the 90s. And it's like the comments I get are unbelievable. Like grown men crying, telling me, just brought me back to my childhood. Thank you. I never heard the words until now. Like stuff like that, So if I look at the money and the siren is calling to me, it'll never be enough.
Well,
I'd be
Aldona,
like, why don't I have 2 million followers?
Aldona,
Huh?
we're out of time, but I wanted to say, for one
Yeah,
thing,
you are.
regardless if it's TikTok or what, I hope that somebody out in the audience is inspired to at least go create. And who knows what's going to go on with TikTok, but I think that anybody can do shorts. We have a couple of, they consider themselves the Marfoogle grandmas, and the Ann Lynn show, and they are, I won't say how old they are, but they consider themselves the Marfoogle grandmas, and they started YouTube channel, and they started editing and learning all sorts of things, and again, it was like anybody can start one, and I do suggest that people try. If they want to, don't, everybody can do this, but you have to put effort, and it's not easy.
And you know what? You have to be authentic. As soon as you start trying to be what you're not, they see right through it. It's the craziest thing. It's not Instagram. It's not Facebook. So if you could be authentic and resonate with somebody, who knows? I mean, it was like, at first it was the singing. They're like, what do you eat? And next thing you know, I'm showing recipes. And then all these people are following because of my recipes. They're like, what do you mean you sing? So it's all over the place. And it's just,
okay, well, so wait.
But I have meaning.
So you brought up something that I see on TikTok, and there's one gentleman in specific, and he's a pretty big creator, and I've talked about this before. He did content, and what his content was him saying how he was essentially he was mistreated as a child. He had a hard upbringing, and how bad his parents were, and he makes these joking kind of talking back and forth to yourself like you always see, and put a song in the background, and it would be like, my house at age 13, and it would have somebody screaming and yelling.
Yeah, those are funny.
It's trauma content, but get this, he's also he did this,
What?
and every piece of stuff that he put up, he would have to put out this trauma content. Then he got big, he started putting music, and everybody goes, it didn't perform the same as his trauma content, and he in fact himself calls it trauma content. And then he put up his music, and then he now does videos saying my music is just as relevant as my trauma content. And looking at it from the outside, you're thinking, wait, you look at this other stuff as trauma content, and it's essentially people that relate and go, yeah, my dad did this too. And that's what goes viral, and then people get hooked on it, and this guy's literally doing trauma content talking about his childhood just so he can get views and likes and swipes.
I know that's hard, and it'll never be enough for him. But if I focus on the giving part, then if I can just say something to somebody or answer somebody, and they're like, oh, thank you for answering, then I feel like, okay, I can relax now. I did something today. I don't care how many people watch this. I just can't. But I want to say about your music, I'm always amazed at your outro music that you always are making back there. You have the energy after every show to be coming up with this original stuff. I'm always amazed at that. It's awesome.
Well, that's why it's so bad most of the time, because I don't have the energy to do it. But thank you. Well, I'm glad that you made it first doing music, and you didn't make it first, saying that, you had a horrible childhood, and now you're stuck in this circle of posting horrible childhood content just so you can rank in the algorithm. The fact that the algorithm thinks of that as a thing is just warped to me. Like, oh, this person has childhood content trauma, so I'm going to show this to them. What are they tracking? Anyways.
I know, that's messed up. It's messed up when people get sucked into that siren, So I'm kind of always real mindful of it, and I'm kind of still staying above water. And I still have a good head on my shoulders about all that,
Well, Aldona, thank you so much, and we went way over time, but I appreciate you, and you have a wonderful night, okay?
You too.
All
Thanks, Adam. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. I hope that on the back end, I want to go see her music now. But you guys know what I mean. Like, if I did share, I won't put that person on blast. But I mean, they admit it. They literally, and then they've even made videos about how they have to post something traumatic. It's like, what kind of circle would you be in where you have to post something traumatic then? So they do their music. They'll do 10 trauma videos, then do a music video, and then they'll literally make a video that says, had to put some trauma content up to get my rankings up. And they put that as the captions. It's like, that's warped. And then how the people are finding that means that TikTok knows this person on TikTok has childhood trauma, and that's why they're showing it to this person. By the way, just so you know, everyone had childhood trauma. And that's the problem with today, is all these kids that are teenagers and they're insecure and they don't like their bodies and they don't like the size of their feet, or how do I change the size of my head? I can't. It's what every single human being went through at 13 years old. It's just part of life. You don't go and go, oh, I hate my feet, I'm going to chop them off. And they tell you, they go, you'll feel happier if you chop your feet off. You're not going to. All right, let's fly through this. China blows up U.S. Navy's largest warship in menacing simulation. China blew up the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, with the help of hypersonic missiles in a menacing simulation, which researchers from China say that it proves that the U.S. Navy warship could entirely be destroyed with certainty. Making use of a wargame simulation system, the Chinese military forces could sink the carrier fleet with 24 unique hypersonic anti-ship missiles throughout 20 intense battles, per the New York Post reports. It says that the results of the simulations went public in a May paper published by the Chinese language Journal of Test and Management Technology, per the South China Morning Post. In this scenario, the U.S. vessels are attacked after continuously approaching the island that China has claimed in the much dispersed South China, despite consistent warnings. Did they really not put Taiwan in anywhere in that sentence? It's like they're even afraid of saying, that island that they may be trying to contend with. Maybe they're one China people. In this scenario, the U.S. vessels are attacked after continuously approaching the island that China has claimed in the much disputed South China. It's like they didn't want to say Taiwan. It says the research said that some of the missiles in the three-wave attack had been fired from as far away as the Gobi Desert in northern China and southern Mongolia, and that almost each U.S. surface vessel was shattered due to the attack and sank in the simulation eventually. Now, we actually have in the overflow, or it will be in the overflow, there is actually a very interesting piece that we put alongside this that says, I think the title of it is, No, hypersonic missiles did not just make the U.S. aircraft carriers obsolete, which essentially people are saying because of what is found in this simulation. First of all, the simulation is done by China. Second, it talks about how, they knew that Russia had the ability to find these ships and everything else. And if they're able to find them, that's the biggest part, that they could do the same thing. But they didn't divest in carriers. They made more of them. In fact, that's part of the strongest part of our Navy. That's why even though China has the largest Navy in the world now, which is still absolutely shocking, we have something like 11 or 12 aircraft carriers, whereas China has 3 going on 4. The third one, they're still trying to get pilots for. So it's not even fully operational. Now, they have also invested in things like the autonomous carriers for drones, a completely unmanned carrier with drones that can then launch all autonomously and remote controlled. Again, they can actually go on their own if they're programmed what to do and what to target. But as far as the hypersonics wiping these things out, that's not necessarily all there is to it. So there is a very interesting piece over on marfooglenews.com in the overflow. It says researchers say that it proves the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier fleet, considered unsinkable by any conventional weapon, could be destroyed by a comparatively small number of hypersonic strikes. Yet the researchers have warned the public and the leaders to approach simulations with a lot of caution, as real-world performances of the missiles could differ from what is initially predicted. It says the report, however, couldn't be verified independently, and analysts have also questioned the motivation for release. So why did they even let us know about this? Now, I want to point out, there's been a lot about their hypersonics lately. In fact, there was satellite imageries that were so clear you could literally see the bolts on the thing of these hypersonic drones. Now, a couple years ago, we heard about how they have a hypersonic object that essentially launched another hypersonic object. And in the fashion they did it, it went all the way around the world. It launched something, then that object went all the way around, and then it hit a target within 20 miles of its intended target. That's absolutely scary, because that's exactly how you would also do a fractional orbital bombardment system. Something that could knock out our grid, do an EMP, and we would not even be able to defend against it. And they successfully tested something like that, according to our government and even other world governments, of course, as well. The Brits said that was correct, and of course, Australia even said that was correct. So as far as this goes, it is bad, because our carriers, are they planning to take out our carriers? That's another thing. If they are heavily focusing on these hypersonic drones, could those drones then also carry something like, who knows, a tactical nuke or some sort of missile on them? They could launch a ton of them off of something like a hypersonic carrier, and if they can find them, that would be the big deal. Then they could destroy them. That's pretty freaky to think about. And there's the fact of sheer numbers. Think about this. Before, you had to have planes, and you would lose a life every time something got shot down. If you sent 100 missiles, it cost money. Well, now they've got these drones that are unmanned and cheap to make. So how many of these things could a carrier, and even with destroyers and Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyers, even if all of them are together and they're all firing, if you have thousands of these things headed their way, could they end up knocking every single one of them out of the sky? If you're Navy, give me a call if you've worked on these ships. What do you think could destroy our carriers? Let me know at 2244-006273. In your mind, if you were to be a devil's advocate and look at the other side and say, this is what would beat us if they did this, and is it some sort of hypothetical thing that's just not possible? Or do you think it should be talked about, because then we have to find the solution for it? By the way, thank you, Scooby-Doo, right? Thank you for the you and Beard Juice going back and forth in a Diamond War over on D-Live. Thank you, guys. And Nope again. What's going on? Quit it, you sus. You guys are hilarious. Texas Rob says, kudos to my brothers Adam and Dex. Much love. Hey, thank you. Don't forget the mods. Thank you. And then thank you for all the new members at the coming up here. We'll talk. We'll go over some of the new members here. Thank you, Edith Ismali, Ferris, Desi Taylor. Thank you for joining. Blissfully East Tennessee Preparedness. Hey, thank you for joining the fam. And then Purple 16. Thank you so much for getting your Mafia badge. Again, you guys are in the first. So now we're in the first 16 days. So I think there's 13 days left if you want that original badge, because every month after that, it's going to be a different badge. So yeah, it's pretty freaky, but I would say read the accompanying article. It makes you feel a little bit better, because this has been a thing for a long time as far as them finding it. So make sure to read the accompanying article over on marfooglenews.com. It will make you feel a little bit better, especially if you're interested in that type of stuff. It is definitely a really great thing to read. And it is called No, it does not make hypersonic missiles do not make our carriers obsolete. All right. And Russian armed resistance group tells CBS News that the UK are conflict helping it attack Putin on his own soil. Essentially saying that these Russian resistance groups they're doing awesome right now because of UKR. Major cities across UKR, including the capital Kiev, were targeted yet again by Russian cruise missiles and drones in the early morning hours of Friday. Russia has upped the intensity of its aerial attacks in recent weeks, attempting to disrupt preparations for a long-anticipated counteroffensive. What's so crazy is they're talking on this as if it hasn't started yet. There's so many different people saying it's already started. Prigozhin says it's in full swing, and then he says, oh, it hasn't started. This is like getting nuts. What is this long-awaited counteroffensive? When is it started? When will we be able to actually see that it started? I think that the long-awaited UKR counteroffensive is when NATO gets involved. I think this is code for when NATO gets involved. The reason why I think this is they are digging World War I level trenches in Russia, 600 miles long of trenches, dragon teeth, and all sorts of other measures to stop an advance, and a massive one at that. Is NATO, and again, this isn't going to be the narrative until last second, would NATO go in there with? Something would happen. It would have to be a Fantastic Freddy of epic proportions, but then all of a sudden NATO officially declares they're in this thing. They go over. Is that what they're preparing for? I personally think so, because look at what is happening right now. Sweatin' Ministries, God bless. Carol, thank you. Joseph Newhouse, thank you. Kush Monster says, we wouldn't have a corrupt government if it wasn't for the order followers who protect criminal politicians, police/military. The enemy is domestic. Well, everybody has the same, everybody is saying the same thing, that the enemy's from within, only different opinions. Hey, I know I explained over and over about call-in nights. They're your best shows. I've called in so many times and have great experiences. I think that's ignoring my calls, though. Joseph, that is not the case. We just have a lot more calls now that we have our 2 nights a week. So Joseph Newhouse, again, no, it's not that. And there's no way to do that on our end of the things. But what I would say is call in right after we introduce Dex. Especially now, we've had so many first-time callers. You can obviously see that I think we've had probably something in just the last or the last 4 shows, we've had 90% first-time callers, which is really, really awesome. Retired at 65 and ready to go. So tired. Let's go Team Jesus. Keep looking up and be ready. Watch and pray. Buy and study the Holy Bible, our only hope. Abide, you can actually... You can also get free Bibles, too. Shabbat Shalom, Fugel fam. Pentecost Sunday, Shavuot, the true meaning of Memorial Day weekend, remembering the giving of the Torah and Sinai and the Holy Spirit. After Shadow 162, I hope you meant to do that. Thank you for the support. It did a $99 super chat. Thank you so much if you did. If you didn't, you can always contact on your end of things, and you can try to fix that through YouTube. Sometimes people do $9.99. And they accidentally do that much. Thank you so much, though, if it was intended. I appreciate it. But no qualms if you have to, behind the scenes, undo it. Bible Talk 777's big weekend for our vets and KIA heroes. It's a shame that the U.S. has become what it has. Honor vets that much more for the extra years they gave us. Well, I do agree. Vets get 1 day. So many other things get everything else. I mean, it's just crazy. Vets should at least get a month. I don't know if you could give them a year, because then every year, it would just be vet year all the time. A Shell, Heath Spear, maybe every 4 years, like a leap year or something, is a vet's whole year. Just all year long, celebrate vets. That would be cool. A Shell, thank you. Heath Spear, thank you. Thank you guys for being early today. And then looks like from New Zealand, I believe that is. Mimi Carstel, thank you, from New Zealand. I think that's what that is. Now, I'm going to pop Dex in here. Dex, it looks like you may... Are you able to pop in, Dex? I know that you may be screening right now. Looks like we had...
Hey, Adam. Yes.
So as far as the attacks inside of Russia, do you think this is like some sort of setup for a big Fantastic Freddy?
Well, I guess this is, whether or not there's this notion that Prigozhin is talking about a revolt, pitchfork style, as I think he tried to put it, or is this something that's being orchestrated by the adversary of Russia, whether that be UKR or anyone else in the West? All of those things happen. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, three-letter agencies, even in our own government, NGOs backed by big wealthy people whose names we're not going to mention, but who we're talking about, fancy names like George and things like that. They've backed all sorts of uprisings, whether they were true or if they were completely fabricated, but they caused it to happen, right? They invested in it. So those things are there, and those things could be real. And whether or not this stuff that's happening on the other side of the border is literally, UKR pushing through with some great offensive, or is it just an uprising of, rebels or whatever you want to call them that are doing it, and they're doing it on their own, or they're doing it, organically, or are they doing it, because it's orchestrated and created and funded by the adversary, being the West or UKR? I guess that's the real question. Obviously, this kind of stuff is happening to some extent. We've reported enough. We've had enough confirmation from the Kremlin about different events that have happened, that things are truly happening, whether it's train derailments to, targeting specific locations in the oblast there, government buildings, things like that. So yeah, it's just questionable whether or not this is part of that offensive, quote unquote, that we're supposed to be waiting for.
Thought it was what did somebody said? And now that I look at it, I see it. I didn't see what the screen name was there. Somebody says the guy in the front is that the guy from Ghost Hunters, or is it Vanilla Ice? Let's see here. Look, so the guy in the black, right? Vanilla Ice went and volunteered. He's even got the goatee. You're totally right, and he's got the stance like these are his backup singers. Does kind of look like the Ghost Adventures guy, right? But he doesn't even do much anymore. The Ghost Adventures guy, what is it, Zach Baggins? He's like, I think it was his health issues have stopped him from doing the ghost hunts now. And then Medvedev says conflict in UKR will last for decades and threaten nuclear strike again. So we have more rhetoric out of Medvedev, the deputy head of Russia's Security Council and the former leader of Russia, has stated that the military conflict in UKR will last for a very long time, and once again threatened a preemptive nuclear strike. It's like, oh, this will last 10 years. Oh, we'll do a preemptive strike. How's it going to last years if you do a preemptive strike? Now, apparently because of supply of nuclear weapons to UKR. It says this conflict will last a very long time, decades for sure. This is a new reality, a new environment. As long as there is such a government, there will be, say, 3 years of a truce, 2 years of conflict, and it will happen again. The very nature of NASA power in Kiev has to be destroyed. Mind you, if you are in Russia and you support this, you're essentially saying this is taking out Germany 2.0 in their opinion. And there are many people that in Russia that not only back this conflict, say that Putin is being weak. That is what is being called out. It says, then that will mean that a missile with a nuclear charge will strike them. There will be irreversible laws of war. If it comes to nuclear weapons, it will be necessary to launch a preemptive strike. A preemptive, meaning that they would launch first without notice. What is so crazy about this is most people write off anytime Medvedev talks about this because he only talks about this. Every quote that they take from this guy, he is saying he's going to nuke UKR or somewhere else. what I guess from a prepper standpoint of view, people need to pay attention, because this is at some point there, whether you think it's orchestrated or not, or a distraction, there will be a Fantastic Freddy so large that it will change the world. And there will be another one. In 2001, obviously we had a huge event that changed the world. It didn't just change the U.S., it created all of the things around us that are tracking us and tracing us. But of course, before that, the really, really big one was, there was several smaller ones, but there was the Pearl Harbor event. Before that, I think the Gulf of Tonkin is what it was, one in the prior. But there's these events that essentially get things started and get things popping off. Now, nuclear is something that everybody talks about, but no one really believes is going to happen. I do believe it would happen. I don't think the whole world would get destroyed. I think one tactical nuke, or one or two or three places would get hit, and it would be contained, and it would be planned, and it would change things greatly. It feels to me like NATO is preparing to go into Russia, and they're preparing for a massive fight. At the same time, it feels to me like we are getting ready for a conflict with China. Now, if you're one of those that says, oh, we'll all be orchestrated and they all shake hands behind closed doors, they may. And we know they have one thing in common, that all of these leaders really don't care if 10,000 men go take out another 10,000 men, no matter what side they're on. They could do that for looks. They could do that for looks, and so they could change around power and have an excuse for it. These are scary words. Most people are not scared by them anymore. It's the boy who cried wolf, but we know what happened in that story. Eventually, the wolf came. And that's what I stress to people is after talking to military folks in this group, they're getting prepared. Take a look at the people in the know and what are they doing. Well, if you look at any company like, say, Atlas Survival, which is building bunkers over the last few years since CV, his company just exploded. The guy just traveled to 10 countries in 11 days. If his kind of business is doing that well, people should be paying attention, because the very richest of the world are preparing for this. These are the same people that are also in the know. This is why people should be preparing for events like this, and it may not be as bad as a apocalypse doomsday, but it might be something where, hey, you don't have supplies, food, things like this, then you should. We're going to go to our next caller, and let's see here. Wow, that is appropriate. Moses. And Moses is going to be talking about Taiwan, Days of Darkness, and a third surprise, calling in from Arizona. So Moses, you're going to start the process to get in. Dex is going to instruct you how to get on. But while we do that, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com. You can protect your vehicles, your trucks, your cars, of course, even your generators, even your Flex 1500 with an EMP shield. This is the new micro EMP shield. It has all of the same protection in a tiny, tiny package, which can fit into almost anything. As far as if the original, which is a bigger box, if that does not fit into something that you wanted to protect, now they have the micro, you can fit it in, say smaller ATVs, things like this. What this does is it grounds the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second of an EMP, all three phases, or a CME, a coronal mass ejection. A CME will happen. We'll have a Carrington level event hit us. It's just a matter of time. We're just waiting on the next one. Now, there's a chance that in the future, everything will be hardened and all of our, grid will be updated, and that won't be an issue. But currently it is. And by many standards, we are overdue for a CME. So if you want to be able to get home to bug in or to be able to get out to bug out, you'll want to protect your cars and your vehicles with this. If you've ever had a vehicle have the alternator go out or something electrical, basically a huge chunk of our cars are basically useless. You can't even press the gas. There's no cord that pushes the gas. It's all electric. It is all computerized. So if you want to be able to get somewhere, this is the thing to do. This is the same company that's now worked with agencies like DHS, DOD, and now they're on the DEMSO team helping the Texas grid. So make sure to go check it out. If you go through us, you get $50 off per device, and you end up helping our channel at the same time. We are trying to expand. We are on our own here. We have gone up so many hills lately, and it finally feels like we're at the other end of just this tunnel of crap. So I appreciate all of you guys supporting us through our affiliates or just sharing our stuff out. That's the hardest thing. It's like, yeah, they just turn the faucet down to reach new people. So the only way we can reach people is you sharing your stuff. So if you really want to support us and you know, don't feel bad if you can't do any of the affiliates, you can feel great and share us in 3 different places today. That would be awesome. All right. And then let's go over to Moses. Moses, you're live on Marfoogle News. What's going on?
Adam, brother, how you been?
Hey, how are you?
In here? Hey, I'm doing really good. And first, I just want to give a shout out to all the listeners out there. This is the 3rd time I've called into the show. And each time I've called in, God has really put it on my heart to call. And I've never had anything like that to call in on a show, and I've done that each time, and each time I've gotten right through. And I also know that, Adam, I love you very much, and many blessings to your family. This will be the very last time I talk to you guys.
Why is that?
Because God's got a lot of stuff heading. Because God has a lot of stuff planned for me, and I'm going to be very, very busy. I'll just leave it at that. Now, I just want to do a quick shout out to Jacob Israel and the Colleen people. If you could afford the hardback, please purchase it. What an awesome book, and what an awesome brother to listen to. Definitely well-grounded. Now, what I would like to share about Taiwan is over 28 years ago, I died, went to heaven, talked to Jesus. He showed me many things of the future. He showed me hundreds and hundreds of faces of people and said, they are going to know the truth because you are going to share it with them, Lee, and they're going to come to know me through this. And I said, okay, Lord. And the Lord showed me many things. And the first one I want to talk about is Taiwan. He told me that Taiwan was going to be surrounded with an embargo from China, that they will not invade. They will not take it by force like America keeps saying they will. They're going to do an old-fashioned seize. They're going to surround it. They're going to cut all the communications. They won't be able to communicate with anybody. They'll be cut from the foreign world. At that point, America will become outraged. Through this, there will be strikes back and forth from China and America. It'll first start with cyber, and then it'll be EMP to stop the cyber. Then it'll be, just as you mentioned earlier, purposely targeted strikes against military bases only. Through this, they will also be using tsunami bombs on both sides of the coast. That's why they have all the amphibious ships ready. That will stop any arm or resistance from Americans trying to fight them back. They will be devastated just like Japan was devastated with that tsunami. They will be begging for the help because they will be devastated and lost everything. America will be pushed to the middle of the country. I'm just sharing this because I want people to know the truth. They do need to prepare. And when the embargo takes place, it's going to be too late to prepare at that moment. Now, real quick on the days of darkness, everyone's heard about, I'll mention it one time, Planet X. Well, Nibiru is covered with iron dust. And when that planetary dead star reaches the backside of our sun at a certain point, that iron oxide is going to try to ignite Nibiru from our sun, just like if you put iron over a Bunsen burner. Since it's on the backside of our sun, the flame of our sun and all the magma is going to be pulled around to the backside. We will just have a slight ring of fire, and our sun will be blackened and dark. That will be the days of darkness that everyone hears about. That will take place until that planetary system moves out of that position and the iron oxide is no longer directed at the sun. They will then come through our atmosphere as red droplets and begin to poison our waters in the ocean and in the rivers. At this point, our world will go through changes and our world will no longer look the same or be the same. But the first change will be the government control change of the world. And that will come through this war that's about to happen. And it will be the war of all wars, and it will be the very last war. Because just like you mentioned, Adam, there is so much devastation of technology, of weaponry out there. This war is only going to be about a 24-hour war. And it'll probably wipe out 1/3 of the population. And at the same time, those 4 bad angels from Euphrates River will be released at that moment. Or it's already dried up at that point. They're just waiting to have their bonds broken. So we're in some big changes and they're coming fast. And he said there would be a great deception in these last days, that even the elect would be deceived if he did not shorten them. Everywhere we look today, there's deception, people. Everywhere. Everywhere. You can't go to any news, any radio, or any paper, or any subject without deception. We're in these days. And I ask the Lord to give everyone ears to hear, and a heart to hear, and a peace to know that he loves everybody.
Now, can I ask you a quick
And that he
question?
came for everybody. Yeah, sure, I'm done.
You said in the beginning, and I could you remind me? You said you had visions given
Died
to you when
28 years ago.
And what was the scenario with that? What happened with that? You died? Is that what you said?
The scenario? Yes, I died.
How did you? Were you basically flatlined? Is that what happened?
Well, Adam, I'm just going to be straight up and I'm going to tell you the truth. I was a man of God and I was going through a very difficult time. And I was losing everything I had in my life. And I told God that was enough. I wasn't going to do this anymore. And I took a Nissan car out in Oakville, Washington, and I cut the hose and I duct taped it to my exhaust pipe and stuck it in the back window and duct taped my window. That was at 7 o'clock in the evening. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and the car was full of exhaust. I thought it was foggy out. I opened the door and began vomiting and then began to remember everything that had happened.
Wow.
And from this day forward, I smell exhaust. I want to puke. And God told me that I wasn't God. I didn't have the power over life and death. That was his choice. And that he had something for me to do. And that's when he showed me all these things and all these people and all this stuff to come. And he told me he knew exactly the steps I was going to take on this planet before he called me back home. And as I was walking away, he said to me, Lee, can you serve me as God? And at that very moment, I had a perfect clarity that he was no longer the Son of God, but they were one. And I understood that, and that Jesus had become my God at that very moment. That he died for me, and only the greatest God of all would ever do that for anybody.
Now, is when you said the tsunami bombs, has this always been part of your vision? Because back in the day, I guess they had rumors of tsunami bombs, but or did you just see tsunamis in your vision?
I seen tsunamis. I seen tsunamis coming over Seattle, brother, over Pike's Place that were over 100 feet tall. One day I was driving to the port and I saw these waves coming over the port in an open vision. And I remembered these were the things that God showed me. and to prepare for this war and when to prepare. And so I started about 3 years ago. I've been buying emergency supplies when I can. I try to spend at least $150 a month to put stuff away. I know that he's got me in a place in the world right off of Interstate 40, right on the other side of the Nevada border over by Bullhead City in Arizona, that it's going to be a safe for a moment, but I also know that I'll be retreating towards New Mexico when the time comes, and it'll be on foot. But I got a straight shot on Interstate 40.
Well, you know what's crazy about the Cascadia subduction zone is a lot of new folks probably don't know this. A lot of the people that have watched my show for a long time, but we covered back when it broke that 21 states were preparing for a tsunami off the West Coast. So that shows you. And then what was it? I think it was Colorado. And Dex, I don't know if you remember, but I believe it was it might have been Vegas, or not Vegas, it's particular, Nevada, that was preparing for people to be walking from California. And this isn't fiction, this is fact. 21 states are preparing for the Cascadia subduction zone, or at least that's what they say. So this tsunami will be so bad, it will wipe out infrastructure all along the West Coast, and people will literally be walking from California into other states. And that's just a really trippy thing to think about. And all of the scientists agree on that.
I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
Get on a government interstate list and look at the work that's been done on Interstate 10 and Interstate 40 in the last 5 years. Look at all the repairs and the widening of the highways. Interstate 10 and Interstate 40 from California into Texas and New Mexico. Look at all the work that they've been doing on that freeway.
Are they hardening them or trying to reinforce them or what?
They've been lowering the medium dividers for landing strips. You know, they've been going in, you have dirt built up in between the highways up in Washington. Man, they come in and bulldoze all that out of there. They made it as flat as they could be in the long areas so they could bring in the planes and land them. They also made it to where on the sides of both sides of the road, they've gone through and they cleared out all these dirt roads and made these big, long dirt roads alongside the highways so people could be off the road.
Yep.
No, they've been working on this for a while. I'm right here off of Interstate 40, and I look at all the trains all the time, and I'll tell you, it's really surprising to see now. I'm starting to see the white trains starting to move. And I know you've seen those. They're kind of like a teal or kind of like a cream color. And they're all the same cream color. Those are military trains. People need to know that. That's military shipment of food supply and all kinds of stuff. When you see those cream colored trains, yeah, that's military. That's government.
Well, Moses, I don't want to cut you off, but we are way over time. Along with, again, we've got one more caller.
Well, hey, brother, peace to you and your family, and I love you guys. And, I love that you're beating the drum out there, brother. You keep beating that drum because people really need to start saving gallons of water, because when this iron oxide comes, it's not going to be good for the water.
Well, Moses,
you won't be able to drink it.
I hope you I hope you go against what you said. I know you're going to be busy, but I know that other people want you to call in again, too. So many people said, I hope it's not the last call.
I'm on Facebook out of Lake Havasu. That's about all the media I'm on, and I listen to YouTube. And, hey, I don't know, Adam, just a real quick heads up, because I know you're really into music. Have you heard of Tom McDonald?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, Tom McDonald
Okay.
is really cool because he even allowed us, when we asked to use one of his songs for a video, he said absolutely. He told somebody we know personally knows Tom, and he is more than cool. And he was already big, and he just he's really a good guy on and off camera. So, well, thank you.
Yeah, so I give a shout out to him, and if anyone wants to look him up, check out The System.
Oh yeah, well,
Definitely an awesome wrap.
Dirty Money was his last one, I think. That was a good one. I go on every Friday
Yeah, that
that
was
he
a good
puts
one,
them
too.
out, and I make sure to try to comment and support him and share his stuff out. Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate
Oh
you.
yeah. Well, hey, to a brother that's cut from the same cloth, peace be with you, and I'll see you on the other side.
All right, have a good night. God bless you, Moses. Bye-bye.
Love you.
Now, hold on just a moment. Dex, so we do need, because I want to get our third caller on here. We have Jake. Dex, how are we on time? Because he has a very important subject about the satellite phones.
Yeah, we
And-
got about 20 minutes at best, I'm thinking. Yeah,
Well,
about 20 minutes.
Can you, my stream deck just went out. Can you talk about the drone boat attack on Russian ship and the one right after that? So both articles, the coming Russian Revolution.
Certainly. So the drone boat, this is what we were talking about. It's not the same ship, but as I mentioned earlier in the show, we were talking about there's now two ships apparently that have been hit, or allegedly hit by UKR. This one is the one that's there's a lot of questions about, like, did it really happen? Where, what was used? Of course, they're saying they sent in these drone boats, and UKR, of course, said they did it and they hit it and they were successful. And of course, Russia said no, they came away unscathed. But then they being UKR, posted an image of one of the drone boats on its way in, about to make contact. And then now there's an alleged photograph that's supposed to show some sort of damage, but I can't see it. But that's what the article is describing. But this is, I guess, the main point here that you should take away from this is this: we're getting into this level. If you remember, maybe a year ago, probably more than a year ago, after it started, one of the ships was sunk and it was taken out. And of course, they said it was done because the West, or the US, supplied, potentially even the equipment and the guidance and everything to do it. Well, now we're at this point again where we're getting multiple ships being hit by UKR. And so this is, it's not new, but it's something we just didn't hear much about in the last year. Like, they really weren't making any moves against the ships, and now all of a sudden they are. So they've hit the one that we talked about in the very beginning of the show, and now they have potentially hit this other one with these drone boats. By the way, these are speed boats that are basically loaded up. There's nobody on them. They're a drone. They charge straight in, and then they cause the damage as they get up against the ship. Of course, Russia said they were able to use their deck-mounted 14.5 millimeter machine guns to take them out, and nothing really happened to them. But as it's being reported in this article, it appears that they've actually been hit, and that at least one blast occurred very close to it. So that's the information we have at this point. Again, I just say, look at it from this whole notion of an escalation. Is this something new? Are we going to see more of this? Because we didn't really see much of this at all from UKR side, as far as being able to target and take out or significantly cause any serious damage to the ships, outside of the one time that happened way back over a year ago. So we'll keep paying attention to this. And then, as far as this revolt, and I sort of briefly talked about this earlier, I was mentioning it, but this whole notion that, there is this idea that if things continue to not make a lot of progress and I guess the way they framed this article was they looked back at the history of, say, some of the other involvements that Russia's had, and one of them being very specifically around Afghan. And what happened there. And it basically, they're saying it played a major role in breaking up the Soviet Union back in 1991. And they lost, I don't know, 15,000, I think it was, during that time. And they said that was, a significant impact to them. And that, looking at what they've done in such a short amount of time, in other words, they've lost a significant number of people, much more than 15,000. Of course, we don't know what the real number is, but we know it's significant on both sides. But for very little gain, that this is something that's rife for bringing up this whole notion of people being upset with the progress that the government's making, and potentially using that as a an igniter for potential revolting or revolution. So that's the narrative that's being portrayed in this article. But it also goes, with what Prigozhin had said about, the whole notion of, if we don't make progress, we're going to have pitchforks in the streets. Maybe there's a little truth into his statement, or maybe he's trying to will something around that. He always has some very outlandish things to say. But nonetheless, going back to the point we made earlier, this stuff could be orchestrated outside. It could be done by an adversary. And that's what we have to sort of pay attention to all this. These are all of the parts that you see when conflict is underway. It's, whether it's propaganda or in this case, potentially creating and encouraging revolutions that would support another side in a conflict.
And that can't be. It looks like, let me full screen this. Is that flag signed by Vanilla Ice? Just kidding. And Black Sea Fleet commander faces life imprisonment for ordering Caliber missile strike on UKR. Now, mind you, this is UKR essentially saying that they will do this. It says the security service of UKR, the SSU, has collected evidence against Vice Admiral Viktor Sokolov, the current commander of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Navy, who is involved in massive Russian strikes on civilian targets in UKR. According to the investigation, since the 10th of August 2022, Sokolov has personally given orders for regular combat launches of 3 M14 caliber cruise missiles on the energy facilities in UKR. As a result of these Russian attacks, the SSU says 4 civilians perished and 40 others were injured. It says the aggressor state carried out attacks on power facilities in Kiev, Lviv, Dnipropetrovsk, Vinnytsia, Kirovohrad, Odessa, Zaporizhzhia, Sumy, and a bunch of other places. It says it is established that Russian attacks caused significant losses to national life support system of the country and civilian population. In addition, the Russian missile strikes led to the temporary shutdown of dozens of local educational institutions, hospitals, and other social institutions. Basically saying, they bombed our power, and our schools were out, and our hospitals, and our senior citizens' home, and our social meeting places, and our golf clubs. Which this is war. So that happens. I wonder if the civilians that were hit, if those were people that were working in those power facilities. I would assume they would, or were they near? Did they totally miss on something? Either way, this is UKR essentially saying that the guy who ordered this has these, essentially is life imprisonment. How would they do that, though? Well, I guess that would mean if they beat Russia, they find this guy and then imprison him. But as far as if they look at it, they go, he's the commander, this is war, he struck targets. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the other side of a war, I guess you could charge them with whatever crimes you wanted to, since there's a whole lot of killing going on. So yeah, UKR is essentially saying this, but people are reading the headlines thinking, and I already saw comments on this when this was on Twitter, is people are saying, well, how is he still serving if he's guilty of this? Or, people said, how is he still the commander if he's done this? It's like Russia doesn't care about UKR's, charges against him. They don't care about that. I mean, technically, Putin has a arrest warrant right now. So it's kind of a trip to see. And then before we go to our next caller, Bill Gates' younger Russian lover and her links to notorious Kremlin spy Anna Chaplin. We'll go over this here in just a second. I do want to say thank you, though. Thank you again, Nana of Montana, Tennessee Mountain Girl. Thank you, everybody that has popped in. Thank you, everybody that supports and shares this independent show out. I appreciate you. Bones and Tubbs Show, thank you. I appreciate that. Be Real Beast says, he is without sin shall cast the first rock, and I shall smoketh it. Love the chat. Sweatinum Ministry. I thought that was a Hunter quote there. Sweatinum Ministries, thank you. God bless. And Carol, thank you. Joseph Newhouse, Black Cat, Well, it's not crossing my path, so it's just sitting there. So I guess I got lucky. But if I walk, does that mean? I don't know. Or if it crosses your path and if it's sitting there, doesn't that mean it crosses your path? If you're walking and it's right in front of you, doesn't that mean it crossed your path? Or does it actually have to cross the path you're on? I don't know. And then abide, thank you. Shabbat, thank you after shadow. Thank you, Bible. Bible Talk 777, thank you, and thank you. And then thank you, Liz Potter, Celtic Warrior, and Danish Girl. And of course, Lisa Douglas. Thank you for your support this week. Two young women stride along a New York street, barely breaking a step to flash smiles at the camera. One of them is slightly out of focus, but her face and the face of her friend is unmistakable, chillingly so. The strawberry blonde on the right is the Russian bridge player Mila Antonova, the woman alleged this week to have been the former lover of billionaire Microsoft co-founder Bill. It says as well as an associate and a financial beneficiary of the late financier and convicted saxophonist Jeffrey EpiPen. What makes this photograph sensational, however, is the presence of the flame-haired woman on the left. She is none other than the notorious Moscow spy, Anna Chapman. It says this week, world-exclusive investigation by the Daily Mail has uncovered a potentially disturbing and unexplained link between Mr. Bill, erstwhile Russian lover, and Kremlin spook Chapman. It says, while there is no evidence of any wrongdoing on Antonova's part, it seems to be a connection which raises serious questions for Mr. Bill and, of course, for the California-based Russian himself. Well, like Captain Obvious here, if she is seen with this woman, I mean, it's just, I mean, obviously there's so many more connections to this. It seems to me like maybe Bill met the lover of his through Mr. What's-His-Face. I mean, pretty clear, right? Hence why everything went wrong with Miss Melinda, all of the above. And what is so crazy to me is with all of this out there in the public eye, which part of this may be super distraction, I don't get it. He still goes on like CNN and MSNBC and people pull him in to give his talks about how he's helping humanity. I don't understand it. When Johnny Depp, if you know Johnny Depp or anybody else, if they have even an accusation of something, they are canceled. He has so many accusations with proof, everything else, and they're like, oh, let's bring on a humanitarian. Who do we get? Well, the best one in the world, Mr. Bill, who basically has all of his money tied up into changing the world in a fashion that is just very disturbing. I find it absolutely crazy. Let's get our next caller on. And before we do, just a reminder, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. If you don't have long-term survival food, not only is it a good idea, this is freeze-dried survival food. So it is sealed in Mylar bags. They subtract all of the water, moisture, and molecules out of it, which not only saves on space, it compacts it down, but when you add the water back into it, it brings almost all of the flavor back. That's what's really great about freeze-dried food. This is from My Patriot Supply, and it is one of the most affordable ways to get bulk freeze-dried food all at one price. This one is now $200 off. Just to put it in perspective, there are some of the competitors which are close to $2,000 for a 3-month supply. This is with the $200 discount. It is actually going to be under $600. Go to marfooglenews.com/prep. And again, you can get smaller packages. You can get a 72-hour kit. You, of course, can get all sorts of other things there as well, like anti-radiation tablets, battery banks, emergency radios, gadgets galore. So make sure to go check it out. Whenever you do, you're not only going to get a discount, but you're going to help our channel at the same time. marfooglenews.com/prep. All right, let's bring in our next caller. Jake, you are live on Marfoogle News. Do we have you, Jake?
Excellent. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're
all right.
You're good.
So which topic? The AI thing would be probably the fastest if you want to start with that one.
You're the caller. You go ahead and tell us what you want to talk about.
Sure. So my big thing on the 50 sat phones that were given out to senators, it kind of plays into a story you did just a few days ago with the AI facial recognition stuff that's going in. It's claiming to stop, various malware and things like that. However, I think it's interesting that you could also attribute it to like a credit score that the Dragon uses. And I think it's interesting that these senators were offered, and apparently all of them were. It was just 50 had turned them down. So you have
Supposedly.
potentially every senator, right? Supposedly. So you could potentially have all of them have sat phones. Well, sat phones can't have AI on them because there's no, to my knowledge, there's not like a camera. It's not like a regular cell phone. And so they kind of bypass the whole credit score altogether, or various other major things that, cell phones are attributed to cell phones, I should say. And so it's almost like, it's great for thee, but not for me kind of thing. Which is, it's generic, across the board with our current system. And then the second topic is, a few months ago, almost maybe even a year ago, you did a video and it was mentioned that there was a slip up that a senator had made in regards to the number of personnel we have in the Taiwan.
Yep.
And they slipped and said it was something like 50,000, and when everybody was like, wait, what? He's, oh, sorry, I meant 50. Well, my grandfather was part of a project in the Air Force, but it spanned really any branch, but it was predominantly Air Force personnel, and their job was to. So this was during Vietnam, and of course we weren't in various other places that now, 50 years later, we know that we actually were operating in, Laos, Cambodia, places like that. Well, the job of individuals like my grandfather, and we found this out through his documents. It wasn't word of mouth from him, because he went down in Vietnam. But essentially what his group was in charge of was kind of fomenting revolution, I guess you could say, and that they would find pockets and cells within certain countries that they feel, they being the agencies, and I'm sure everybody can put two and two together. But anyway, the agency would feel that a certain group in a country would be more susceptible to democracy, or would be more willing at least to fight to establish a democracy. Well, that involves, like I said, Cambodia, Laos. The project, if you want anyone to look up, is Project 404. And they, on the onset, when you search it up online or whatever, it states that it was basically a group of guys who would go in and pick targets for forward air controlling. And their job was basically to call in airstrikes from the local air forces, whether it be the Laotian Air Force, the Cambodian Air Force, and they would come in and attack a target. Well, it ends up that it was a bit deeper than that, that the agency was a lot more involved than originally people had thought. And what's really interesting is my mother and I, we recently came across this gentleman who kind of confirmed everything we were worried about. Well, one of the things he said is that this project on paper expired when the Vietnam War ended, which was in '75 technically. However, there was something that was picked up during the Clinton administration, and it basically piggybacked off of what was done with the project. That they essentially, they being the agency or the company, it varies between who you talk to. However, they picked up what was being done in Vietnam and basically just kind of ran with it and started doing it in other countries that they feel that they could get away with, AKA Iraq. I don't know if we need to abbreviate those, or Afghan, places like that. It just kind of is interesting that after the agency acquired this kind of template, they all of a sudden started popping up with other places that they feel that they could move into. And that kind of brings us to 2014, when the agency very clearly kind of went into a certain election with a certain country that we're now watching on the news fight another country like the bear. And that was basically the playbook of Project 404, is they would have these elections, or they would have these pockets within this country kind of spring up, and then when the time was right, they would enact a new government. And so we're basically living with the kind of repercussions of what was being done back in the 70s and 60s, except now it's a lot hotter in terms of what's being used. And that's what's kind of interesting, is that the show today mentioned those two ships. Well, I mean, Vietnam started with the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and that was a ship. The Spanish Civil War started with a ship. World War One kind of was the catalyst. It was a ship. So it's almost like the playbook is being written out in front of us, and similar to what the gentleman, I believe, before me was talking about, how there's certain events that are about to transpire. Well, if you look around and see, ships are being attacked, which is exactly what happened with various other wars and conflicts that, got us as a supposedly neutral position into a greater role in various, ways. So I've fully, and all that was just to say, we definitely have people in UKR. We definitely have people in Taiwan. And these roles are not to teach, how to use certain platforms. They are very strategically placed. They are looking for targets within UKR, within the Bear Country, within the Dragon, within Taiwan, various locations that they will perceive are weak points, that if something were to pop off in the case of Dragon and Taiwan, then they would attack say, for instance, they would pick targets within Taiwan that they know the Dragon is wanting to hold. And so they're actively, coming up with strike packages that can be used whenever that's inevitably happens, whenever the Dragon finally comes down.
Well,
and they're, go ahead.
Well, one thing I agree with on the last caller is so we know for a fact, if we don't have troops there, if we don't have any force there, we're going to lose. In all of our simulations, we lose if we don't have something already in place. If our Navy's not completely parked right there, we're going to lose Taiwan, and it will be more of a get Taiwan back than keep them from. They're only 120 miles off the coast of China, so they can quickly get there in almost no time. And we can't. So we would have to have something there. It would make sense if we secretly have maybe even plain clothes. And that quote he was talking about is U.S. Senator John Cornyn deleted a tweet in which he said wrongly that the United States currently has 30,000 troops stationed in Chinese-claimed Taiwan, a claim that spurred Chinese media to call him a dotard. And by the way, I actually... found a picture of a dotard with a satellite phone, and it's on screen now, if you're wondering what a dotard is. Okay, but go ahead and continue.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up the plain clothes, because that's what the Project 404 guys would wear. They would wear civilian clothes. They were, oh my gosh, I always forget the term, sheep blocked or something. Basically, their identity was scrubbed. Social security card, name, birth date, all those were basically scrubbed from records for the time being, or in some cases, permanently, that essentially these people who were involved just didn't exist. They would wear civilian clothes, and it brought me back to when, because I remember watching your show when we had that serviceman who went AWOL and yet wound up in UKR and then ended up a forceful parachment.
He wasn't just a
And
serviceman; he was a
everybody was
Navy
like, oh.
SEAL. A Navy SEAL went AWOL from the Navy
Exactly.
to go volunteer fight in UKR. Doesn't make too much sense.
And he was not volunteering. No, he was, in my opinion, based off what I know from my grandfather and various men who was with him. These guys were, everyone who was chosen for this group were spec ops. They would use Anglico, they would use SEALs, they would use Green Beret, they would use certain sects of forward air controlling in the Air Force. They would use PJs, so pararescuemen. They only picked special forces. And so now we, in the present day, have special forces members who magically went AWOL, but then are winding up in UKR, and not just as an advisor, but as an active participant of said conflict. No, we are very active. We are molding this the way everything we see on the news is exactly how the agency is wanting it to be, because it just doesn't